Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Podcast, or maybe I should say, welcome back. So many of you take this podcast and make it a daily, weekly growth track for you. And I'm so proud of you because this really is the podcast that adds value to you, podcast listener, so that you will multiply value to others. I'm Mark Cole. I'm the CEO of Maxwell Leadership. Today, I'm excited to continue our two-part series on a winner's mindset. If you missed part one, be sure to go back and learn about continually growing every day, owning your dream, and living intentionally. That was what John taught last week, but this week, John will share thoughts 4 through 6 on a winner's mindset. Then Traci, Morrow, and I, we will dive into how we're living these out and how we're applying them to leadership. Plus, today we're going to offer you some ways you can apply John's lesson to your own life. If you would like to download this episode's bonus resource, which is a fill-in-the-blank PDF, you can go to maxwellpodcast.com/winner and click the bonus resource button. You can also watch this episode on YouTube by visiting maxwellpodcast.com/YouTube. All right, that's it. Let's get back to part 2. Here is John Maxwell.
Thought number 4 that'll take you to the top. Success lies in forming the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. That is a fact. Let me repeat it. Success lies in forming the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. In other words, one of the greatest differences between successful people and unsuccessful people is in their habits. That's why I have in your notes, when you do the things that you ought to do when you ought to do them, the day will come when you will do the things that you want to do when you want to do them. I have a statement that I make many times in leadership conferences. The secret of your success is discovered in your daily agenda. You can go to the bank on that. 2 more thoughts. Thought number 5, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Emerson said, what lies behind you, what lies before you are tiny matters compared to what lies within you. So the question is not what big problem do you have in your life, what big issue do you have to solve in your life. The question is, what have you got on the inside? 2 thoughts. Roberta Flack was exactly right when she said the situation you live in doesn't have to live in you. 2nd thought. Maintaining the right attitude is easier than regaining. Just keep your maintenance of your attitude up, because if you lose it, it's hard to get it back. Isn't that true? Haven't we all lost it? Your attitude is so key, and here's why. An attitude is an outward expression of an inward feeling. That's what an attitude is. I wrote a book in 1986 called The Winning Attitude. You can tell a person whether they have a bad attitude or good attitude sometimes without them ever talking to you. Isn't that true? You know what your attitude is? Your attitude always goes before you. Let's review, because the 6th thought is a very important one. I want to get to it in a moment. Number 1, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Number 2, don't let anyone steal your dream. Number 3, you can spend your life any way you want, but you can only spend it once. Number 4, success lies in forming the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. 5, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Thought number 6, your greatest achievements are those that benefit others. That's why Henry Van Dyke said, there is a loftier ambition than merely to stand high in the world. It is to stoop down and lift mankind a little higher. It is true, the greatest achievements you and I will ever have are those that benefit others. The other day I was at lunch. People were talking about significance and they were talking about success. And all of a sudden it just came to my heart and mind. I mean, I knew that I had the difference, and for the first time clearly articulated. I said, success comes when we add value to ourselves. But significant comes when we add value to others. You see, both of them add value, but one is singular and the other is plural. One is inward, the other is outward. And I think that statement that I've made, that the greatest achievements that we're ever going to have are those that benefit others, is a true statement. The Ecclesiastes writer said, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up, but pity the man who falls who has no one to help him up. J.A. Holmes said, it is well to remember that the entire population of the universe, with one trifling exception, is composed of others. So what do I believe about teamwork and what do I believe about partnerships? Number 1, leaders lead for the benefit of others. That's why you lead. If you're a leader, you lead for the benefit of others. You lead to add value to their life. The quote, true leadership must be for the benefit of the followers, not for the enrichment of the leaders. Anytime the benefit is for the leaders more than the followers, the leaders are now beginning to manipulate their followers. Number 2, partnership purifies our motives. When we partner with somebody else to give them the credit, it purifies why we're in that business. John Bunyan said, you have not lived today until you have done something for someone who can never repay you. I promise you that will purify your motive. Number 3, proximity is not necessarily unity. Billy Graham said, our world has become a neighborhood without becoming a brotherhood. Number 4, my highest value is the value I bring to others. 2 quotes, one by Red Auerbach, who for many, many years, general manager of very successful Boston Celtics. He said, one person seeking glory doesn't accomplish much. Everything we've done has been the result of people working together to meet our common goals. Bill Russell, who for many years was the anchor on the Boston Celtics team, said, the most important measurement of how good a game I played was how much better I made my teammates play. Isn't that a great way to look at yourself? Thought number 5 in the area of teamwork and partnership. Great achievements are a result of teamwork and partnerships. Woodrow Wilson, past president of the United States, said, we should not only use all the brains we have, but all that we can borrow. Lyndon Johnson, another past president, said, there are no problems we cannot solve together and very few that we can solve by ourselves. One more thought, number 6. Lasting achievements are a result of teamwork, or they're a result of partnerships. Harvey Firestone said, it's only as we develop others that we permanently succeed. I love that quote. And Andrew Carnegie on his tombstone has this written, here lies a man who knew how to enlist the service of better men than himself. I have committed my life to partnership. I've committed my life to teamwork. Everything I do now has value for others. In other words, there's a multiplication whenever we team up. We're here to complete one another, not compete with one another. We're here to add value. It is true, we are our brother's keeper. Pour your life into others and add value to them. Come not to be served, but to serve.
Hey, podcast listeners. How would you like to be equipped with the tools to continue your personal growth and refine your strengths and weaknesses, all while being surrounded by other growth-minded leaders like yourself? You may have heard of Personal Growth Day. For our second time ever, Maxwell Leadership is hosting this one-day event on March 13th in Orlando, Florida. This event is designed to dig deeper into who you are and how you tick so that you can become the best version of yourself. If you're unable to attend Personal Growth Day in person, we also offer virtual access to the event. If you would like to participate in a one-of-a-kind experience and stand shoulder to shoulder with growing leaders who will sharpen your skills and equip you to create powerful, positive impact, go to maxwellleadership.com/Personal Growth Day to learn more or get your ticket. We'll see you there.
Hey, welcome back. Traci and I are excited about unpacking this and giving some application. You know, Traci, I'm reminded of Jim Ryan's quote. He's an Olympian. He said, motivation gets you started. Habits is what keep you going. And for those of you that are in the habit of the podcast this year, kudos. That's a positive habit. But we've got to develop a winner's mindset. We're now, this year is slipping by us, and we need to be a winner this year, and it starts in the mind. So Traci, I'm glad to have you back. Love debriefing these with you.
I love debriefing these with you, and I'm excited to dive right into number 4. He gets right into the meat of it. Success lies in forming the habit of doing things failures don't like to do. So let's just kick it off by asking you, Mark, what would you say are the top 3 habits that serve you well in your leadership journey?
You know, boy, I love this question. She did not prep me with this question, but the top 3 habits would absolutely be, it would be my year-end review process. When I, 20 years ago, determined that every year I was going to have a year-end review, it made a difference for me. And so I plan out my year. I've designed my life around 5 pillars. And I take those pillars and I create growth trajectory, growth expectation around those in any given year. And then at the end of the year, this is all part of my process, I review those to make sure that I have done what I said to plan. And then I give myself a grade. Did I do it well? And then I set the course and the plan for the next year. So that would be one habit that is a game changer for me. And now, 45 days after the beginning of the year, I'm still allowing that growth plan to drive my daily activities. The second thing that I would say, Traci, is absolutely, it's all about an inner circle. My wife, Stephanie, is the advisor of my personal progress. She is the advisor of my personal counsel. And I bring her into that growth plan. I hold the plan accountable to her. I have other inner circle members that are super important to me in driving the progress and the process of my personal growth. So my inner circle would be the second habit, engaging them, inviting them in. Traci, just before we started recording today, I said, Traci, what's your word for the year? I want to hear it. And I'll share with you mine when we have a little bit more time. And then what did we say to each other? Keep us accountable. Keep us accountable. That's an inner circle discipline that is a difference maker in what has happened and shaped me with my mindset and with my progress. The third, I talked about this a little bit last week, but I got to talk about it again. The third for me is environment. What environments am I placing myself in? Traci, I go all the way back to a habit of reading books, asking people to mentor me, discipline number 2. But discipline number 3 was absolutely, what are the environments I'm going to attend in a given year that's going to make me better? I talked about it last week. I'm going to talk about it again this week. If you're new, this is brand new for you. If you're not and you're listening to this again, this is a reminder and a kick in the seat of the pants saying, why haven't you registered yet? Because on March the 13th in Orlando, Florida, Traci and I are going to be part of a group of presenters that's going to challenge people to grow day in and day out. We're going to have Pat Lencioni, Valerie Burton. Of course, none other than John Maxwell is going to be there. We're going to have Tim Elmore, Jeff Henderson. We've got a menu of people that's going to be designed to help you grow and develop yourself. My question to you is, are you in an environment that calls things failures or calls things lessons? That's what we're talking about in this point. And I can promise you this, March the 13th in Orlando will make a difference in your life. There's 2 ways that you can attend. 1, come to Orlando and let Traci and I meet you. You're our podcast family. We want to meet you. We want to greet you. 2, if you can't get to Orlando on such a short notice, you can actually sign up for our virtual experience, which is the same programming, the same challenges, the same content, the same opportunities to grow. You can find more information for both of these options, in person or virtual, at maxwellleadership.com/personal growth day. Traci, again, I'm going to tell you, for me, creating an environment, having an inner circle that keeps me accountable, and putting a plan together is how I've made a habit of growing and not allowing failures like John was talking about to stop me, but actually to start me on a new growth of journey of learning.
I love that. I love that. And that's something all of us can do and implement straight away. Even, February, it's not too late to begin. If you didn't do that at the end of the last year, you can begin it now and kind of assess what happened, what last year looked like as you begin this next year. It's not too late to implement that now. But I would love to, on the topic of habits, just kind of ask you for a little bit of insider's tip, because you have such a unique role with John, with your proximity with John. Is there anything, if you could talk about a habit or maybe two that you have developed or that you've seen because of your proximity to John, that has so greatly affected your life that maybe you could share with all of us that we haven't experienced? I mean, John is very open in what he's an open book. He teaches everything that he does. But is there anything that has impacted you, that has impacted your life as a result of your proximity that you could share with us?
Yeah, and I think it started with a discipline for John. And then now it's worked itself into a habit. In other words, something tangible he can do to make sure he keeps the discipline in front. And the discipline is not to take himself too seriously. In other words, and again, we're still talking about the habit of doing things failures don't like to do, people that have a failure mindset rather than a winning mindset. And one of the things I love about John that I have learned, and I work hard to apply this in my life, is John will take a disappointment, a discouragement, a less than satisfactory result, and John will look at it and go, wow, I'm going to take 24 hours and I'm going to debrief that, and I'm going to see what I can learn. But he never makes it personal because he doesn't take himself too seriously. He always is committed to being his best version, and if that comes up short, find a way to learn so he can be a better version tomorrow. And he does the same thing with success. He doesn't take himself too seriously with success. I mean, he's written 86 different books, 119 derivatives of books, and has 36 million pair of hands that's held his book. Yet, as you've said, Traci, he never lets that get to his head and let him feel elevated about himself. One of his greatest illustrations on that is when he walks off the stage and gets a standing ovation, which happens quite often. He always goes, John, they're applauding the gift. They're not applauding you. So get yourself off the stage. Let yourself go about your business, because that's about the gift. It's not about you. And gifts can be taken as quickly as they can be given. And when John does that, that's a discipline, by the way. That's a habit. When people try to elevate him to superstar status, John always
Super
brings
sauce
himself.
Works too.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Sauce.
Superstar status, then John always has the discipline of going, they're not applauding for you. When something bad happens, he goes, John, you're not that bad. It's a discipline to self-talk himself to keep that winning mindset and to make a habit out of it.
I love that, because we did not talk about that beforehand, but it leads right into number 5. And that is the Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us, because that's really what you're talking about and what John really embodies. It's not about circumstances. It's being settled inside of who you are. It's not whether they're applauding you or whether they're throwing eggs at you. It's knowing who you are and what your purpose is. And that is a winner's mindset. And so I believe that we as leaders, I know I'm certainly tempted to lean into my circumstances and letting them believe that they have more power over the outcome and my attitude, maybe in the midst. And so if you could talk about, like, in the midst of my leadership journey, so if you could talk about a time maybe when your attitude and being decided inside yourself you had to lean into that more than the circumstances that were happening around you for your winner's mindset.
Yeah, so I can give you many times, I can give you a very current relevant time. Early this morning, I woke up, and like most leaders, what keeps you awake, what wakes you up in the middle of the night, what keeps you up. These are all passion questions and questions that we ask ourselves. What makes you sing? What makes you dream? What makes you cry? What keeps you up at night? What wakes you up in the morning? What's that anticipation thing? Well, sometimes in a leader's life, what wakes you up in the morning is not anticipation. It's a sense of dread. It's a sense of, oh my, if I don't get this problem solved, it's going to have a way to impact in a ripple effect. It's going to affect multiple things, not just one thing. I woke up this morning extremely early with something on my mind that I had not solved yet. And the mindset, Traci, was not on solving the issue. The mindset was on all the dominoes that were going to fall if I couldn't solve the issue. I spent about 20 minutes in my home office. I got up, got out of bed because I wasn't solving anything in bed. I think it was 3:15 this morning, and I went to my office and I went, good grief, I can't sleep. I'm not solving anything there. And I sat down, and my mindset was on the cause and effect of a challenge unsolved. The cause and the effect, not on solving the problem, which is a loser's mindset. Goes back to the last point. I was failing in my mindset because all I could think about was what was going to happen if I didn't solve the problem. And I spent over 20 minutes wasted thinking on what was going to happen if it wasn't solved, rather than thinking what will happen, how can I solve the issue? And it was almost like a light switch flipped in my office, and I went pop, and I went, Mark, this is such a loser's mindset. You cannot win the day by thinking of all the problems that are going to happen if the problem is unsolved. You can win the day if you start thinking about how you're going to solve the problem. So case in point, what's in me was working itself out. I want to be a problem solver. I don't want to be a problem forecaster. I don't want to be a pandemic forecaster. I want to solve the problems as they come my way. And I believe that is what John is saying here by quoting Emerson when he says, hey, what is on the inside of you? Well, for about 20 minutes this morning, what was on the inside of me was doom and gloom. And I just went, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm going to start solving the problem. And would you believe, not only did my mindset improve, not only did my attitude improve, but my ability to solve the problem improved because I changed my focus.
I love that so much. It's the next quote by Roberta Flack. The situation you live in doesn't have to live in you. It's that stopping yourself, the discipline of stopping yourself mid-negative stream. And it can become a rushing flow if you just go with it. And it can derail you quickly, which is probably why he says maintaining the right attitude is easier than regaining the right attitude, which is what I love when you share something that's live happening with you, because we can all relate to that. How many of us, I was up early. I had a little bit of insomnia this morning. I was up early in the dark in my office this morning. Similarly, it's so funny how parallel our lives were, but this morning, similarly running through where I had to just stop and reroute my thinking in a different way because it's not serving us well when we just circle around it. So if anybody's ever tempted to think, oh, we've just got this down, these lessons are just as much for us as they are for every listener of our podcast. Okay, moving on. Go ahead.
It's this real true, like epiphany. I mean, not to borrow from my teenager's language, but it's a fizzle. I mean, it's like this moment that I go, hey, what is going on? And my mind starts exploding with an understanding that, wow, I can be relevant. I can go that route.
Yes, it's true. It's true. Okay, so your greatest achievements are those that benefit others. So is that a lesson that you have to be very open to? Like, why do leaders misunderstand this so often?
Because I believe in most leaders, there's enough competition. Allow me to say this, all of you podcast listeners, there's enough ego that most often we look at accomplishments as saying, hey, you're welcome, world. I gave you my best and you are better for it. Because we're so driven a lot of times as leaders to be competitive, to be a winner, to be a champion. We fail to allow ourselves to remember that the win is all about the people that are around us, and we make the win about ourselves. It's a common struggle, I believe, for servant-based leaders. I believe there are leaders, you and I probably have worked for them, Traci. I'm not going to incriminate all the leaders that you've worked for in your life, but I have certainly worked for leaders, not with leaders, because there was no working with them. I've worked for leaders that life was all about them. And the challenge with that kind of an egotistical, self-centered leader is the shelf life of their effectiveness is very short-lived, because people will not stay with self-absorbed leaders. They won't do it. If you're a self-absorbed leader and your achievements are about you and not the people around you, your leadership is done. We just need to get the expiration date for you, because you're not going to sustain. But then the leaders that can truly make their accomplishment and others' accomplishment and team accomplishments about the people around them, there is a staying power with that leader that will keep effectiveness going for many, many years. Hey, I have benefited from a self-absorbed leader. I was a part of a team that accomplished great things in a short amount of time. It was a self-absorbed leader that was leading us at that time. But I couldn't hang with it for long, because there was an inability in that leader that I don't want to be true, to be said and be true about my leadership. That is, I am the reason. I made this happen. I am the best person in the room. It's not sustainable. Us as leaders, especially Maxwell podcast leaders, I'm going to challenge you. Find an achievement that you have celebrated in the last few days, few weeks, maybe a few months. And I want you to assess how you celebrate it. Did you shine the spotlight on others, or did you keep the spotlight for yourself? Because I believe your greatest achievement are those achievements that benefit those around you, those that you're serving.
You're so good at that, I will say. And I know I'll move on to the next one, but I just want to say, I notice anytime that John gives you public recognition, you immediately point to your team. And I love that about you, because you do live that out. That's a moment where John, as you know, a moment where you and John, who are doing everything you can to live out and breathe out his legacy into the next generation. And when he gives you public kudos, you immediately point to your team. I think that's a beautiful example to me, because who wouldn't want to sit in that moment for a second and just be like, oh, wow, I did do that. But you don't. You give right recognition to the team who helped you get there. True, you did a ton. It was you championing that message, you championing that legacy, but it's also you give recognition to the team, so the team feels every bit a part of that recognition that John's giving to you. It's spread out among others, and the buy-in just continues. The buy-in continues when they're a part of it. So anyway, kudos to you. And I think it's a lesson to me too. I want to be that kind of a leader. But I do have a question about this next point that he makes, because John talks about the difference of success and significance so often, but I'm curious, are they at all times in opposition of one another? Like when he talks about success being singular and significance being plural, and success is about adding value to yourself and significance is about adding value to others. And I don't think anybody would argue with that. But I'm curious, is it all about significance for you? Or is there also the part of you that is also striving for success on some level, personal success on some level? Because I think some people would feel like, I want to strive for success too. So could you expand on that a little bit?
I can. John and I have had a lot of conversations around this, Traci, and so I think I can really represent the both of us in our conversations in my response to you. I believe everything that John taught right here. Success is what happens to you. Significance is what happens through you. I believe that we add value to ourselves when we see success. I believe we add value to others in significance. I think the thing that has been interesting, as John and I have talked about this, is John started his life of leadership from a significance perspective. In other words, he started out, Traci, wanting to make it. He started writing books, wanting to add value to people, not to be a renowned global leader, author. He just didn't start out that way. He started out speaking to people. He started out continuity programs. $1 million products that John has created has been around the idea of making sure that he added value to people. There is a true first filter for John. However, if you've been around John often at all, you know that success is a huge driver for John as well. John likes success and significance. I would tell you that I came to John Maxwell's world needing some personal success. I was beat up. I didn't feel like I had anything to offer, and I wanted to come and make something of myself in a new environment. I didn't feel like people cared about what I had inside of me, much less be intentional about adding value to them. It was all about getting a firm footing underneath me before I ever felt like I had something to offer others. We came into this world of adding value to people two very different ways. John, very much significance, and he still has it, but trust me, he's keeping count of how many books he sold. He likes successful indicators. I came in 100% trying to prove my self-worth. I wanted to feel valuable again within me. And I can tell you, as I grew in my confidence that I had value within me, the significance part of me came out. So I want to illustrate that because many of you are in a pursuit of success. Nothing wrong with it. Keep doing it. Send me a comment and a message to Traci and I about your success. I want to celebrate with you. But never get so self-absorbed that success satisfies you, and never get so focused on significance that you don't want to be successful. Because I'll tell you, for me, I want to be given significant things and learn significant things from people of success. Significance goes further when it's on a platform of success, and success goes further when it is established with a significance and a platform about others. So our ability to marry the two and keep them hand in hand tandem is our ability to sustain legacy. You be successful, and that's all you focus on for too long, and you're going to become self-absorbed with no significance. If you become significance and stay focused on significant others for too long and don't focus on yourself, you're going to crash and burn because you have no success to build significance on top of. It absolutely takes both.
Oh, that is something to rewind, play back, write it down, put that out in front of you, because I'm so glad I asked that question, because that defining the two and how they feed one another, I think it explains John and it explains you. And I think it gives some of our listeners some real permission. Okay, we're going to be closing out here, but we have so many from the last 2 weeks, so many big thoughts that I think we hit on. We just hit on a big gold nugget right there. But what would you say would be the big takeaway as our podcast listeners turn off this podcast and they step back into their lives? What would you want them to be the one big takeaway, the first big takeaway? I mean, there are many here, but what would be that big takeaway message?
It's eliminate the losing thoughts that you have. Eliminate it. And every one of us have it. So don't feel like the champion of loser thoughts because you had some loser thoughts today. We all have it. I have it. I talked about this morning, early this morning, I was losing in my thinking. But the first thing that I would say is, what are you focused on in your thinking that needs to be eliminated? Just eliminate it. And then very quickly, sorry, I'm going to give a part 2 to this, but very quickly replace it with winning thoughts. Things that will elevate your thinking to a belief, a hope, a sense of encouragement that you can make a dream come to pass. You can make today better. We have a book that we've been highlighting last week and this week, Today Matters. I would tell you, quit focusing so much on tomorrow, quit reflecting so much on the past, and make today count. Make today matter. I don't know how you can become a winning mindset kind of a leader if you allow and entertain losing thoughts. So it starts today. It starts right now. Do an inventory. Where are you negative in your thinking? And begin to change that thinking and start today. What we will do, I'll help you get started on that. Go to the show notes. You'll be able to find this book, Today Matters, with a 15% discount. I'll give you a discount because I want you to focus on today winning thoughts. Now, let me say this. I'm going to tell you to bet on yourself. I am challenging you to place a bet on yourself. I've got a good way for you to do that. Go to maxwellleadership.com/personal growth day and bet on a trip to Orlando or bet on reserving March the 13th in the comfort of your home with people around you and begin to learn what growth is all about. You can get those additional details at maxwellleadership.com/personal growth day. I want to meet you in person, but I'll settle for meeting you online. Let's just not settle on staying in a losing mindset because that will impede your ability to be your best. There's a listener that has actually modeled this. It's John. John listened to Change Starts With You, which is a podcast we did some time ago. In fact, we'll put that in the show notes as well. You want to get that one. I remember that one very well. John said, I was turned on to these podcasts mid-2022. John, where were you for so long? Thanks for finally showing up, buddy. He said, I never miss a week now. Thank you, John. We love being with you. He said, thank you, Mark. I loved this particular podcast. Again, Change Starts With You. He says, as an organizational change management practitioner, it was outstanding listening to your approach on change. I was thinking of the technical aspects and terminology as you were telling how you lead through change, and they are the same concepts, just different words. I was loving the way that you explained the change. John, I may need to sit and listen to you about some of the different approaches that we have because we as leaders have got to change. Thank you, John. And the first place we change is change our mindset. So change your mindset. Make it a winning mindset because the world needs powerful, positive change. And we at Maxwell Leadership believe that everyone deserves to be led well.